Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us. We're thrilled to present this webinar today with our association partner, UNNO Cycles. Today's webinar is a future forecast. We're looking at trends in design, materials, and technologies in the bike business. Our expert today is Sebastián Arredondo. He is the sales director for UNNO Mountain Cycles. UNNO Mountain Cycles has a unique suspension design called CERO, and CERO has been responsible for the design of some of the sexiest bikes we are seeing in the US market. I'm thrilled to get into this presentation today. With more than 250 bicycle designs in the last 10 years, CERO Designs is a driving force. So Sebastián, thanks for being here. Really excited to see the presentation, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. We're very happy to be here, and we take the chance to say thanks for all the people at MBDA for making it possible. It's very exciting to be here. So as you said, Heather, we are UNNO from Barcelona. Right now, I am here in Barcelona. And to understand why are we talking about the future, I would like to just tell you a little bit about ourselves. Okay, as we will cover some aspects of some trends for new designs, new geometries, new materials, or construction methods, which we think are trendy or could become the trend. And then at the end, some humble recommendations from the people in Barcelona. So to understand what is UNNO, we must go one step back and meet our parent company, which is CERO. In Spanish, zero goes before uno. So this is where we're at. CERO, it's a company that is responsible for a lot of the products that you see in the US, probably in your shops. It's a design agency and studio, which is also an engineering studio with more than 100 engineers. We have probably designed more than 250 bikes, from which they belong to maybe 50 of the top brands in the world. I would say that half of them are American brands. Therefore, we can say that we know what's going on in the design, because a lot of the future bikes that you will see in the next 4 to 5 years are actually being designed right now. Okay. So it's a kind of long process. It takes maybe 4 to 5 years to develop a new bike from the scratch, from its concept, which normally comes from a strategy or a business strategy. Then comes the creativity part, where we take a look at what's going on in the market, not just what's going on in the bike business, but also on the motorcycle business. And we also do a lot of research of what's going on in the architectural world, what's going on in the motorsports and the supercars. And there's a lot of aspects that take into account to make a new project. Then we get to the development, which is the engineering, the testing, and then all these stress tests that we put into all the structures that we build. And finally, the launch. So this is what CERO does. And at some point, its founder, Cesar Rojo, who you probably met on the last podcast with MBDA, he created the brand UNNO because he wanted to have something that was completely free for development. He didn't want to have any restrictions in terms of what could be done or what should be done for the bikes. So this is how it all started. To give you a very quick idea of what we do, we are behind a lot of the designs, as I said, of the brands that you already know, like Intense or Felt or Mondraker, Orbea, and a lot of American brands as well. But not just bikes, we also have done a lot of motorcycles in the last few years for brands like GasGas and Jota and Husqvarna, KTM, and so on. So now let's get into the reason of this presentation. After having said this, the first thing, or the very first, or the most powerful, let's say, the most powerful driving force behind innovation and design of new bikes, we think it's in the electric bikes, okay? Electric bikes are expected to grow a lot more in Europe, okay? I say Europe because the US is a whole different ballgame right now. But if you look at this interesting graph, the green part, it's how the sales of e-bikes are expected to grow in the following years until 2030, where we will be actually selling more e-bikes than muscular bikes or acoustic bikes, however you want to call them. And this is for sure the reason why a lot of the things will be designed in a certain way or not in the following years, because people will change the way they ride their bikes as they get assisted by these electric engines. You can also see that we're expecting that the sales of non-electric will go down seriously in a few years because of these big trends. So I would say this is a macro trend, and the next details that we're going to talk about are more like micro trends within the industry of the mountain bikes. Okay, I will not cover, for example, about road bikes or city bikes. We will focus on our specialty, UNNO, which is the mountain bikes. The next graph, it's also very interesting because as we saw previously, the blue bars represent the growth of the bikes that will be sold in Europe. Okay, we're talking about probably 30 million bikes at the end of 2030. But if you compare to the US on the smaller red bars, you will see that things are not developing as much in the US, but there is a reason for this, you know, and we believe that the reason is that the way of the cities in the US are built or are set up, okay? Distances are huge. It's not easy in a lot of US cities to go on your bike to work, for example. You don't have public transportation that is ready to embrace this bike culture yet in many cities yet. So a lot of these numbers that we're looking at in the graph belong to commuting bikes and city bikes, okay? This is not just mountain biking. So in a way, even though this doesn't look all that exciting for the US, it is in a way for us, because these little red bars belong to mountain biking in the way that we understand it. So let's begin by one of these micro trends within the industry. One of the questions that we get a lot from our dealers and our friends, what's the future of super light bikes? Okay, super light bikes, in our view, are here to stay. And let me tell you why. Because the next question would be, will the super light bikes look more like a cross-country bike with an engine and a battery, or will be more towards trail enduro styles, you know? Well, thanks to the engine, you know, the weight of the bikes is becoming less important because you are being assisted by the engine. So you no longer care about going uphill, and you're no longer concerned about all these things, and you're more concerned in the fun of the bike. The engine takes care of the uphill, and you take care of the downhill. That's pretty much what is the trend in terms of usage of these types of bikes. So since weight is less important, why don't we have longer travel suspensions? Why don't we have stronger wheels? Why don't we have better brakes? You know, and those are the things that normally cross-country bikes leave aside to gain, let's say, a lighter bike, to have a lighter bike. So this is why we think that this is one of the bikes that we will see in the next few years having a lot of growth. You can already see them in some brands, these super light bikes. So basically, what we were going to see is that super light bikes will stay here, but more like a trail enduro bike rather than cross-country bikes. Now, another trend, this is not a small one, actually. This is a big one. We're looking at the development of integrated shifting engines, electric engines that have an internal transmission system or shifting system that it's not only automatic in some cases, but it's also predictive. Okay, this means that the bike is reading your needs on the road, and it may shift upwards or downwards depending on what the machine thinks you're going to need. Okay, let's think that you're going downwards, but after that there's like a creek or something, and you have to go up again. So the transmission system, it's predictive in the sense that it's going to prepare you to go uphill right after the creek or whatever. We think it's a big trend because we already know about at least 12 to 15 engine brands or motor brands that are developing these types of technologies, not just on the hub kind of engine, but also on the mid engine or the pedelec engine, which is more like what we mount in our bikes. So how will this affect the industry? To be honest, we're not sure, because if these things develop well enough, we may even not need derailleurs or shifters of other kinds, okay? But so far, we do need them, okay? Which brings me to the next slide, because another big trend is the wireless shifting, okay? There was still some resistance a few years ago from people who are very, let's say, traditional in the way they ride their bikes, and they didn't like electronic wireless because they probably batteries get worn out, or people who are in racing didn't like them because you may damage the system and you want to change it for a new one, and you don't want such a pricey piece of equipment on your bike. But definitely this is one of the things that we will see in most bikes in the following years, okay? And this also has a big impact on the way that the frames are being designed, because you no longer need to have all the wiring. And this wiring, has an effect on the way that the rear triangles are designed, especially. Now, this is already a trend, and it's been ongoing for a few years now, the way of the integration of the cables, okay? I'm talking about general integration of all the cables in the bikes, okay? Not just, let's say, not just the brakes and the shifting, but also just any kind of cables that we will need, because bikes are becoming very electronic, and they are getting full of sensors to measure speed and measure all different forces on the bikes. So to the question if is the integration and the head tube going to be forever here, we don't know. It looks good so far, but it's becoming kind of a problem for the people in the shops, okay? Because when you need to service a bike with integrated cables from the headset, we know there's a lot of complaints from end users, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who have to pay for the extra labor costs of the service of these bikes. So we know that some brands are working in this direction to find maybe an easier way for the mechanics, the technicians to service the machines. They definitely look nice. That is the main reason why cables are integrated. And so we will keep looking at very interesting integrations. For example, this is another option that it hasn't really, let's say, spill over all the brands, but we know for a fact that there are at least 2 or 3 brands developing integration of the braking from the lever, okay? So you will no longer see the cables entering the head tube, but you will not even see one cable because they will be entering from the handlebar itself. Is this going to be in other brands? Probably yes. It's been there for a while. It hasn't really come to the surface. We're not sure if this is going to be like the biggest trend, but it's definitely something to look after, and something that we'll keep an eye on for the next few years. Now, I take this chance to move to the terms of geometry. We have also seen a big growth in terms of travel of the fork, okay, of the front suspension, and we have seen it in every bicycle of you can sorry you can see it in cross country. In the last few years, we have gone from 100 millimeters to nearly 120. And also lately, we have seen the down country bikes at 130 and so on. We have seen trail bikes moving from 140 to 160 in the highest levels. We have seen enduro moving from 160 to 180 millimeters. If you think about it, it's only 2 centimeters, but it really makes a big difference in the way the bikes are ridden. So we should expect more of this in the following years, that we will go to higher or to longer travel in the suspensions. Now, what about the mullet? Well, we think the mullet is here to stay, not just because we love it, but there is a big reason behind it to stay on the enduro and downhill. Okay, we will not see it in cross country. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but we will keep seeing it in the enduro and downhill. And we must think about the motorcycle development, and enduro and motocross. It's it's a big lover of mullet bikes. In bicycles, we will see the 27.5 on the rear and the 29er on the front to keep growing, because we think that if you have a smaller wheel on the back, it will produce less inertia, okay? And this will allow you to be very agile on your riding, especially if you are competing. So this is why we think that it's gonna be here for a while. The downside of the smaller wheel in the back is that it doesn't generate a lot of inertia. So you will not see in cross country where you really want to get to that momentum and just let the bike help you to get on the longer distances. So this is what we expect for mullets, also known as the mixed wheels. Now, flip ships. Well, flip ships have been here for a little while already, maybe 4 to 5 years in some cases. For those of you who are not familiar with the flip ships, the flip ship it's a system that if you actually flip it, you can change the geometry of the bike, and you can make it more like trail, or you can make it more cross country, depending on your needs or your likes of riding the bike. However, we think that this concept has not been communicated or informed enough to the final users, because we have noticed that people are not really using it, you know, and it would be so easy to change your geometry by just flipping the chip. So will this become a trend? We're not sure, unless we make a big effort letting know people what it does and how cool it is. So it's really something that we were all excited about a few years ago, but it hasn't really grown as we expected. Oh, sorry, not just in the rear side, but also you will see the flip ships on front suspensions as well. You can already see it in some bicycles in the forks. So it's an interesting thing, but we're not really sure it's going to be a success. Okay, now we go to the materials side of the business. In terms of materials, there's been a lot of developments in the last 10 to 20 years, although the key point here is how effective or how efficient are these constructions money-wise or cost-wise, and therefore that's what will actually determine if its impact in the market, and this will determine its success, definitely. For example, this picture right here. It's aluminum casting. It's we have seen this not in mountain bikes yet, because we have seen it more into city bikes, because that's and electric bikes, where it doesn't, you don't have to be that competitive, you don't have to be that lightweight kind of a bike. And we also must remember that aluminum is a very rigid material. It will not work, it will not absorb vibration the way that other materials like the carbon fiber does. Okay, this is why carbon fiber is still kind of the king of high performance bikes. And another downside of this technique is that it imposes some kind of design limits. You cannot really go well into the details of the very sharp curves and some other aspects that are not as easy to work with like other materials. Another interesting development in the last few years was 3D printing of lugs. Okay, these lugs, for example, are from Atherton, and it's interesting because they put to work 3D printers for the service of bike construction, and they connect the tubes or the lugs, with the tubes of carbon. So at the end of the day, you have a very light bike, very interesting concept, but still, at least the way I see it, it's like experimental kind of technology. It has not succeed with other brands because it's something which is very niche market. Okay. However, all these inventions or all these innovations sooner or later evolve into something else that you never know if this technique or this construction method will actually be used for making some kind of component, and then it becomes like really successful. So we keep an eye on these things, and even though it's not a trend, I must say, it's something just interesting to keep an eye on. Another interesting, let's say, innovation of the process is the automated carbon fiber layering. Let me explain a little bit about this. As you may know, the carbon frames are very complex to make, and they're made by hand, actually. Even if you want to make it as automated as possible, at the end, you need a person to lay the pieces of carbon on two molds and then close the mold, put the resins, and cook all this system of frame that it makes it very complex. And this is one of the reasons why the construction of carbon frames has been almost exclusive in the Asian market, because you require a lot of labor, a lot of time, and this also made possible that the people from Taiwan or China are like the experts of carbon fiber. We know of several factories here in Europe, for example, that have, and someone in the US that are actually making frames by themselves, but in order to reach a higher number of bicycles, they need a lot of labor. So this is not being cost effective yet, although people are working hard to get there. So in our case, we started doing small batches of 50 to 60 bikes here in Barcelona, 50, 60 frames per year. But as we move on and we want to satisfy the demand for our bikes, we need to partner with other companies that can actually go a little bit higher with the numbers of bikes that we can deliver. Another, let's say, concept that it's innovative in the frame construction of carbon fiber is the thermoplastics. Thermoplastics is it's a plastic, it's a resin that has the ability of being that you can heat and cool down many times. Okay, because most plastics you cannot. You just heat it up and or cool it down, and the properties of it will change. But this is not the case of thermoplastics. You can do it many times and you can still keep the properties of these resins along with the rest of the carbon fiber. So as I said, a lot of companies are looking at building the frames, the carbon frames in Europe or America, but have not been there yet because of all these complications, but we believe that this is a big trend, and we will eventually be making frames and at a cost-effective level in both America and Europe. Okay, which brings me to the next thing, which is reshoring or nearshoring. Okay. Well, as you may know, there are geopolitical tensions between the US and China for the last few months, and maybe they will prevail in the next few years. So a lot of companies are relocating, especially US companies are moving back to the US or moving back to northern Mexico, for example, to still be competitive and stay near the US, which is the biggest market. And so we will keep seeing that. This is also a big trend in terms of production. On yesterday's presentation with Bob from Specialized, he was talking about the manufacturing cluster was moving to Southeast Asia, for example, like Vietnam, from China to Vietnam. So those are also trends that we will see. And interesting, also a very interesting data, 80% of the bikes sold in Europe are assembled in Europe. Okay, of course, they are assembled with pieces that come from all over the world. But for example, in the case of our bikes, the electric bikes, the MIF from UNNO, the bike is assembled in Germany and by one of our partners. And since the bikes are equipped with a Bosch engine and with a Bosch battery, most of its origin or most of its value, it's made in Europe. Therefore, the bikes are exempt of tariffs in many countries. Okay, so this is something that we will keep looking at for sure. Of course, it will not be easy. Okay, still we need to understand, or we need to locate all these companies near the US. It takes time to develop the technical knowledge and the know-how to actually build a lot of components. And so it's gonna be costly, and it's gonna take time. And we should not forget that most of the components are still made in Asia. So this is going to be something to look for, but be patient. It's gonna take some time. And there's still a lot of components and bikes in the pipeline or in the stocks. So no rush. Okay, we'll have to take care of the stocks first and then rush on the production side. Batteries, of course, this is one of the big things that we expect to improve in the following years. This is just an example, but I know that different companies are working on different technologies. This is an example of a lithium-ion solid-state battery. Well, to explain this easily, it seems like solid-state batteries can hold a lot more energy than the current lithium batteries. Okay, this means that they can also recharge faster, and they have a longer lifespan. So we could probably make them lighter. The big question is, do we really want them to be lighter if we have a strong engine driving us? So at the end, what we're going to see in the following 3 or 4 years, it's that the capability of the batteries will probably duplicate, according to what we have seen in some of the developments of some suppliers. Also, if you put on top the artificial intelligence and machine learning, it means that the batteries will also, let me clarify. The battery, as it is connected to the engine and a set of electronic devices, all this pack will eventually learn how you use the bike, how much energy you ask to it, and how much assistance do you need from the bike. So by as you ride more, these batteries and these packs of engine and battery will actually learn your habits, and we will make it more efficient for you. So this is one of the trends that we'll definitely see also, the use of AI and machine learning in the whole bike. Okay, it's just, it could be anywhere, because the next slide, it's about the Internet of Things as applied to the bikes. Okay, we could make a specific presentation about this, but I'd just like to keep it simple and being respectful of your time. Well, the Internet of Things, it's actually becoming part of all the objects that are around us. Okay, they will become part of your house, your TV, your cars, and it's going to be everywhere. It already is in the industry. But if we talk about how does it apply to bikes, well, we already have connectivity with phone devices and navigation devices that are communicating by internet and sending data to your phone or to a database of your bike's brand, or you can actually communicate to your customer service for your, let's say, your favorite workshop or your favorite bike shop. You can already connect to it and maybe ask for a service and calendar, or even, I don't know, just communicate with your shop as well. It's also something that is bringing security to the bikes. We have seen already emergency calls, and we have seen it in the helmets. Okay, if you fall down, let's say violently, it will call the first person that you put on your list for emergency calls. It will also allow other people to trace you and see where you are in case, let's say, you got punctured or you fall down, whatever. It will allow you to lock or unlock. Well, it already does. Okay, but this lock unlock thing, we have seen more into the city bikes here in Europe. It will automatically download upgrades and software updates for the engine. Let's say new engine mapping is developed, and you want to have a different kind of mapping, maybe racing or maybe just cruising around on the beach, and you can actually download it directly to your bike. And of course, a lot of performance analysis is being done already with all these data, especially in the racing. And finally, of course, artificial intelligence will become part of all these ecosystems, okay? As it's constantly learning what you do, so then it will be able to offer you things and give you suggestions, maybe tell you to set up the bike in a different way, or tell you ways for being more effective in your training or being faster. All these things are happening in such a speed that it's difficult to keep up with. So this is going to be actually one of my main recommendations at the end of the presentation, to keep up with the development of things as much as we can. Okay. So this is it. This is when we go to the recommendations. Very humbly, we just like to tell you about the things that we have seen that work in Europe, especially because we think that the development of the e-bike market is a little bit more mature, yeah, especially in the city bikes, but we will see it also in the mountain biking. So the first is to find an innovative brand to become your supplier, simply because they will keep you on top of technology, because they will constantly inform you, invite you, make you part of the new products and the new developments. Number two, okay, e-bike sales are not yet a boom in the US, but they will become sooner or later. I remember that I used to say, no, I will never use an electric bike. That's not for me. I'm kind of an athlete. I like to be tough guy, you know? But then you hop on the first e-bike, which is, let's say, reasonably okay. Not top performance, just reasonable bike. And there's no coming back. You know, you cannot go back to the traditional bikes anymore, because it's like getting on an e-bike. It's like getting all the good things from a bike and none of the bad things. Okay, it's like, yeah, it'll go uphill for you. It will be doing good downhill for you. You can go long distances. As funny as it sounds, here in Barcelona, it's kind of very hot place, very humid. So some people didn't want to ride their bikes to work because then you will end up all sweaty and you know you don't want to be like that in work and the office. But then electric bike came, and it's a big solution. You go there, you can choose the level of effort you want to make. Therefore, you can go effortless actually to the job, and you can combine with public transportation and so on. So at this point, sales of e-bikes are 10 times higher in Europe, but this means that there is a world of opportunity in the US, and it's going to come sooner or later. Maybe not in the city bikes yet, unless the city is ready to welcome all the bikes. But this is why we think that the mountain bike business will be benefited from this trend of the e-bikes. So stay tuned for this. Number three, believe in technology. It's something that is the main driver of sales for the next years. It's going to be everywhere on your bike. It's going to be in your suspension, on your braking, on your communication with the internet. It's going to be on your e-bike. It's going to be everywhere. So just stay with it. Which brings me to the next point, which is become an authorized e-bike service provider. If you're not already, I'm talking about this getting yourself trained in the service of a Shimano engine or a Bosch engine or a TQ, whatever the brand that you want to have. It's a good idea to become a service provider because a lot of the revenue in European shops is coming from servicing these e-bikes. Okay, people can no longer do it at home unless you're a very good technician. But most of us do not have the time or the will or the knowledge to service your own bikes anymore because they're becoming very complex. And so this is where the shops come in. And so I would say that shops are here to stay for a very long time. In fact, this is our strategy as a brand. We need to partner with shops. This is like priority number one, because we know that this is a big need for the market, for the final users. Be active on your social media. It's the main source for bike culture. Like it or not, these people are being informed with their cell phones and Instagram, TikToks. It's Facebook for the older people like me. So it's whatever your social network is, just try to be stay on top of it because it will be a good source for communication with your customers, and it's very agile and very easy to use. And then of course keep pedaling. It's just a reflection. Just as a bicycle loses its balance when it ceases to move, life's equilibrium relies on perpetual motion. Okay, so the minute we stop pedaling, it becomes more difficult to stay in equilibrium. This is just a way to tell you that we must keep as much as we can up to date with technology and trying new things in the shops, trying new methods, partnering with people like the MBDA or just partnering with other shops and going to the events. All this kind of activity will sooner or later bring you to a higher level of business and enjoyment as well. So this is my presentation. I hope you like it. We didn't go too much into detail, as you can see, because I know time is precious. So it's we like to from now on, maybe there's some questions from Rachel.
Thank you so much. I do see some questions. We'll turn it over to Rochelle to moderate those.
Thank you. Don't make it too difficult, okay?
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see what's in there.
Our first question is, how much consumer research do you do to peel back and determine the demand in the market?
Okay, the demand studies, let's say from the brands we work for, comes from them. Okay, let's say the economical studies and demand and so on. And the studies that we do as a brand, as UNNO, are important in terms of the usage of the bike. However, our history as a brand is not that big, okay? So we decided to become different in many ways. So one of the main, let's say, aspects that we look for in this research is that we must be able to give something which is really different, kind of edgy, kind of unique, even if it doesn't sell that well, okay? We're not all that interested on the sales as we are interested on being very avant-garde, okay? That's what I can tell you. So, but yes, we do a lot of research in terms of what is going on in the market. But basically, because we have been for like 20 years, indirectly looking at the way of the market. Okay.
Thank you. Next question is, how much influence will automotive have in engines in the form for e-bikes and internal shifting designs?
Okay. Well, a lot of it. I would say that most of the developments that you see in the bicycle business have gone through the car industry, then they have been used in the motorcycle industry, and eventually they make it to the bike business. Okay, and you can see that in active, for example, these reactive suspensions that are electronic and respond to the way of the road is happening. This comes from Formula One. Okay, then it's being used in motorcycles, and then it's being experimented in bikes. Okay, the same goes for hydraulic brakes. Okay, started with cars, now it's came to motorcycles, and now to bikes. The same goes for the, let's say, we haven't seen it yet, for example, in the bike business, but just to give you an example of anti-lock brake systems. They came from Formula One to normal cars to motorcycles. You can already see them in motorcycles. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see it in bikes, maybe in some time. And electronically speaking, it's the same way. Cars now have a lot of electronic components. They're mostly a big computer with wheels. And this is coming to the motorcycle business as well, and then it's coming to the bike business for sure. So what is the relation? It's total. It's absolutely what you see in the car industry will eventually come to the bikes. Yeah. And materials as well. Okay. Let's not forget that carbon fiber is something that has been developed mostly in the car industry, and now it's like spilling over the rest of bikes and motorcycles. Yeah.
Our next question is your prediction about geometry also going to demand more expensive frame materials?
Well, the aim is that it doesn't, I think most brands are working on making it less expensive, and some of them are getting there. So I think in our view, the materials of the frames should be more and more efficient, therefore less expensive. And that is what we think is going to happen in the next few years. People are trying new technology like new resins for the carbon fibers, and also this 3D printing. It's also getting there. At the end of the day, what people are looking for is to automate the production process of the frames, because this will actually lead to lower costs, and then people will be happier for sure. I hope that was more or less what you wanted to know. Yeah.
I think so, yes. Only a few more questions here, so we won't keep you for too much longer.
Oh, no, I'm all for you guys. Yeah.
The next question is, what's the future for thermoplastics in components and frames?
We have seen some developments there, and we believe that people are going to keep trying. I say keep trying because the solution is not there yet, but it will be seen. And we think that there's already a few brands testing these materials. So this is something to look for. Definitely, it's it's going to be trendy. How long is it going to take? We don't know. Okay, it all depends. So at the same time, a lot of new materials are being developed. So we don't know if maybe in a few years the people doing chemistry will come up with something even better for the needs of the market. So on the other hand, as I said, with the electric engines making the weight of the bike less important, we may also see some developments going that way in the terms of the frame sets. Okay, maybe a frame set doesn't have to be 1 kilogram or 10 kilograms. It could be 12 kilograms. Who cares? Because we have a very strong engine, and we see a lot of that in the motorcycle business. You know, you can see that maybe a motorcycle, enduro bike, costs as much as an enduro motorcycle. They both have the same prices, and the reason it lies a lot in the materials used. The bike being extremely specialized materials, very expensive, and the motorcycle with, let's say, less expensive materials like aluminum, for example. It works great, and you have a very powerful engine. So you don't care about a 1 kilogram here or 2. It doesn't matter. Okay, so we don't know what's going to be the way of the new thermoplastics, but it's something, again, very interesting to check for.
Thank you. Our last question, what is your opinion of cast magnesium?
To be honest, I have no idea about cast magnesium. It's something that I haven't actually heard of. So I couldn't talk about it. Sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah. Maybe we can.
Problem.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here with us today and for the information. I certainly learned a lot, so I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rochelle, and thank you, Heather. Just take the chance to let you know that UNNO is actually growing in the US, and we're on the way to have more dealers. So you have my contacts here on the end of the page. And if you're interested in the UNNO branches, give me a call, send me a message, and I'll get back to you.
Fantastic presentation, really well thought out. I loved all the imagery, and really appreciate you and your team taking the time. Thank you to everyone who attended today. I hope everyone has a nice afternoon. Bye now.